Captain Elias Vane had never seen anything like the palace before. It floated in the sky above Zoria, a planet bathed in the light of twin suns. The structure itself seemed alive, a massive lattice of translucent towers glowing with shifting colors, as if the building breathed along with the wind. Energy fields hummed softly around the palace, faintly bending the light in mesmerizing waves. Humans had long speculated about the alien civilizations of the galaxy, but nothing in the history books could prepare him for this. Elia's ship touched down on a floating platform near the palace gates. He stepped out in his lightweight exploration suit, helmet tucked under his arm, feeling the strange pull of the planet's gravity, slightly weaker than Earth's, just enough to make movement feel elegant, almost floaty. He adjusted the straps of his pack and walked toward the massive doors carved from an unknown metallic alloy that shimmered in shifting shades of blue and silver. Two guards appeared as if summoned by thought alone. They were tall, their skin iridescent and textured like polished stone. Each moved with perfect symmetry, their eyes glowing faintly. Elias had studied alien forms before, but nothing could have prepared him for the way these beings carried themselves, not with menace, but with a presence that demanded attention. "Welcome, human," one of them said in perfect galactic common, the standard language of trade and diplomacy. The voice was smooth, neither warm nor cold, but precise. "The Queen awaits. Follow." Elias nodded, trying to mask his nerves. "Of course," he said, keeping his voice steady. He followed the guards into the palace. The interior was unlike any architecture he had ever seen. The walls were not walls at all, but vast surfaces of shifting light that formed intricate patterns and colors, almost like the inside of a living gem. The floor beneath him pulsed gently, resonating with each step he took. As they moved through the corridors, Elias caught glimpses of other attendants, creatures of various forms and shapes, each seeming to radiate intelligence and grace. Some were humanoid, others more alien, with elongated limbs or multiple eyes, yet all moved with a harmony he had never witnessed. It was clear that the palace was not just a building, but a center of immense power and influence. Finally, they arrived at a massive chamber, its ceiling stretching far above into a seemingly endless void of light. At the far end, seated upon a throne that seemed to float just above the ground, was the alien queen herself, Zyra. The legends had described her as both brilliant and terrifying, a ruler whose intellect and presence were unmatched. But seeing her in person, Elias understood that words fell short. Zyra's skin shimmered like liquid silver, her eyes deep pools of violet light. Her long, elegant form was draped in garments that seemed woven from strands of starlight itself. She regarded Elias with an intensity that made his heart beat faster, not from fear, but from the sheer recognition of her power. Around her, attendants and guards stood at attention, yet none dared move closer without command. Elias swallowed, reminding himself that humans were known for audacity, and sometimes audacity could be its own advantage. With a half-smile, half-joke, he stepped forward and bowed slightly. "Your Majesty," he said, voice firm but playful, "I hope you don't mind if I speak plainly." Zyra's gaze fixed on him, unreadable and precise. "Speak," she said, her voice melodic yet carrying an authority that silenced even the hum of the energy around them. Elias took a deep breath and before second thoughts could stop him, said, "I've traveled across galaxies, met countless species, seen wonders no one on Earth could imagine, and yet I must ask you a question that might seem trivial. Would you marry me?" The words hung in the air. For a moment, silence reigned in the grand chamber. Guards shifted slightly, attendants held their breath, and even the glowing walls seemed to pause in anticipation. Elias braced himself, expecting outrage, a challenge, or perhaps a display of force he could not anticipate. But Zyra did something unexpected. She tilted her head slightly, studying him with those violet eyes, and then, in a voice calm yet sharp, she said, "Guards, leave." The tall, iridescent beings around her moved instantly, stepping aside as if they had never existed. The chamber emptied, leaving only Elias and the queen. The space felt immense and yet intimate, a bubble outside time itself. Elias blinked, hardly daring to believe what he had heard. "I didn't expect that," he admitted, a nervous laugh escaping. Zyra's lips curved faintly, a gesture that almost resembled a smile, though it carried weight and calculation rather than amusement. "Few have the courage to speak freely in my presence," she said. "Even fewer have the audacity to test me with a question like that." Elias shrugged lightly, trying to appear casual despite the pounding of his heart. "I suppose it's my human way. We tend to surprise people. Sometimes it works." "Surprise is a dangerous tool," she replied, her eyes narrowing slightly. "It can provoke, it can offend, yet in your case it has intrigued me." For the first time, Elias felt the tension in the room shift. It was no longer the threat of judgment, but a challenge. A puzzle he needed to navigate carefully. He realized that the alien queen was not just testing his manners or bravery, she was testing his mind, his wit, perhaps even his character. They walked slowly through the chamber, Zyra leading the way as if she had invited him into a dance without music. The floor pulsed beneath their feet, and the light around them shimmered with patterns that seemed to respond to their movement. "You humans are unpredictable," Zyra said after a while, her voice softer now, though still carrying its natural authority. "You act on impulse, emotion, humor, and yet you survive. You adapt in ways that most species do not." Elias chuckled. "We're a stubborn lot." "Maybe too stubborn, but it does have its advantages, keeps things interesting." Zyra stopped at a balcony that looked out over the floating towers of the palace. "Interesting," she repeated, her gaze distant. "I have ruled for centuries. I have seen countless species, each claiming uniqueness, and yet none has approached life with your audacity." Elias felt a spark of confidence. "Audacity can be useful," he said, "especially when no one expects it." She turned to look at him fully now, the violet of her eyes glowing brighter in the soft light. "Perhaps it is time I see what else your species is capable of," she said. "Walk with me, speak freely, show me your human mind." Elias' heart raced. This was not a victory in any traditional sense. He had not won a battle or claimed an artifact. But in that moment, the human spirit itself felt recognized. He had no weapons, no armies, no superior technology to boast. All he had was his courage, his wit, and his willingness to challenge the norms. And the queen had acknowledged it. They spent hours walking through the palace, discussing philosophies, ethics, history, and the peculiarities of human nature. Elias found himself explaining why humans told stories, why they celebrated curiosity, why playfulness and risk-taking were as valuable as strategy and logic. Zyra listened, asking questions that revealed her own sharp intellect. At one point she stopped and gestured toward a vast window overlooking the planet below. "Your world, your species, small, fragile, yet full of life. I have underestimated your kind," she said. "You do not conform. You do not calculate every action. You are alive." Elias smiled, feeling a thrill he had never known on any mission. "I suppose we are. We make mistakes, we take chances, we surprise even ourselves sometimes." Zyra's gaze softened in a way he could not fully interpret. "Surprise," she mused, "may be the most powerful force in the galaxy. Perhaps I underestimated it." As the twin suns began to set over Zoria, casting brilliant streaks of orange and violet across the sky, Elias realized that what had begun as a playful, audacious question had opened a door to understanding. The Queen, feared across star systems, had seen the value in human unpredictability and courage. And somewhere deep inside him, Elias knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast, full of challenges and conflicts he could not yet imagine. But for now, he had made the impossible possible. He had spoken freely, boldly, and been recognized not as a human to fear, but as a human to respect. The chamber hummed softly around them, alive with energy and light, a palace of wonder that had become, for one human, a place of opportunity. Elias stood beside Zyra, looking out at the world below, knowing that audacity had a place even among the stars. And in the quiet pulse of that moment, he understood that the story of humans in the galaxy had only just begun. The guards would return eventually. The challenges of diplomacy, politics, and survival awaited. But Elias Vane felt a spark of hope and of human pride that no alien force could extinguish. And somewhere in the distance, the palace lights shimmered, as if acknowledging the first step in a tale that would be remembered for generations. The quiet of the palace was broken by a sudden vibration beneath their feet, faint at first, then growing steadily. Captain Elias Vane turned sharply, noticing Zyra's eyes narrowing as she listened. The pulse of the palace itself seemed to react to the disturbance, rippling through the walls of light. "They are coming," Zyra said calmly, though her body was tense. "A faction from the neighboring system sees this as an opportunity. They assume I am distracted. They are wrong." Elias felt a thrill run through him, a mixture of fear and excitement. Humans had faced danger before, but never like this, not on an alien world with threats that made earthly warfare seem trivial. "What do you want me to do?" he asked. Zyra considered him for a moment, her violet eyes scanning the chamber with precision. "Stay with me. Watch. Learn. When the time comes, you may provide a solution no one else can." The twin suns had fully set now, leaving Zoria bathed in the soft glow of its moons. Through the vast window, distant shapes approached, sleek ships unlike any human design, moving with deadly grace. They were numerous, and their intention was clear. They wanted to challenge the alien queen and, by extension, the humans she had accepted as allies. Elias studied the ships, noting patterns in their movements. The alien vessels were precise, coordinated, but he noticed a subtle rigidity, a predictability in their formation. "They're brilliant tacticians," he said aloud, "but I think they rely too much on order. There's a pattern they repeat, and if we can disrupt it—" Zyra looked at him sharply. "Disrupt it, explain." He stepped closer to the observation window, tracing the shapes with his hand. "They're expecting a standard defense. Guards, weapons, shields in set positions. But humans improvise. If we act in ways they can't predict, we can make them hesitate, make them vulnerable." Zyra's eyes flickered with what Elias could only describe as amusement, though her expression remained regal and unreadable. "Go on. Instead of just defending the palace, we can use the environment. The floating towers, the energy fields, they're powerful, but their alignment is predictable. If we manipulate them strategically, we can create confusion in their ranks." Zyra studied him silently and then nodded once. "You will lead the initiative. Show me your human ingenuity." Elias felt a surge of adrenaline. This was no longer a playful challenge, it was survival, and the stakes were higher than anything he had faced. Yet he also knew that humans thrived in these moments, when pressure forced creativity. They moved quickly through the palace, Zyra guiding him to control chambers filled with alien technology. Panels of glowing symbols shifted at their touch, and Elias' eyes darted over the controls. Though unfamiliar, he could sense patterns, understand flows of energy, and see opportunities to manipulate them. The palace itself seemed willing to respond to them, humming with anticipation. "Focus on the energy fields around the towers," Zyra instructed. "Redirect them to interfere with incoming ships' sensors. They will think the palace is moving or unstable. Confusion can be as powerful as weapons." Elias nodded. He tapped sequences, improvising on what he saw. His human mind worked differently from the alien technology. It approached problems laterally, combining observation with instinct. Slowly, the energy fields began to shift, creating flickers of illusion and disruption around the towers. The incoming ships reacted almost immediately, breaking formation and firing at empty spaces. "This is working," Zyra murmured, her tone sharp with approval. "Your species may yet surprise the galaxy." Elias allowed himself a small grin. "Told you, humans improvise." But the enemy was relentless. One of the lead ships, larger and faster than the others, adjusted its trajectory, aiming directly for the palace. Shields flared along the walls as Zyra issued commands with fluid gestures, energy beams lancing out to intercept the vessel. Yet Elias noticed a flaw. The ship's path relied on predicting the shield's movement. "If we change the shield's rhythm, slightly faster, slightly slower, it will overshoot," he suggested. Zyra considered his idea, then nodded. Together, they adjusted the shield patterns. The lead ship, anticipating one movement, collided with its own missile beam instead, detonating in a burst of light far from the palace. Elias felt a rush of exhilaration. Sometimes, it's not about brute force. It's about thinking differently. The other ships hesitated, and that brief pause was enough for Zyra to strike decisively. Energy beams swept through the attackers, precise and devastating. Still, Elias noticed a few smaller ships maneuvering to flank them. "We need to draw them in closer, make them overcommit," he said. Using the palace's energy pulses, he created a false opening, enticing the smaller vessels to chase a path they thought was weak. They flew right into an energy trap, caught in a net of glowing barriers that incapacitated them without harm. Zyra watched, impressed. "Your strategy relies on observation and adaptability, not sheer power. That is human strength." Elias nodded, catching his breath. The chamber pulsed softly, the palace itself seeming to acknowledge the human contribution. For the first time, he realized that humans, small, fragile, often underestimated, could influence events on a scale he had only dreamed of. Hours passed as they fought off wave after wave of attackers. Each time, Elias suggested minor adjustments, exploiting patterns and subtle weaknesses. Each time, Zyra executed them flawlessly, her alien abilities amplified by his human insight. The combination was unstoppable, not because of superiority in any single area, but because the human mind and the alien intellect complemented each other. Finally, the last of the attackers retreated, their formations shattered and morale broken. The skies above Zoria cleared, leaving the palace glowing peacefully in the moonlight. Elias slumped against the control panel, exhausted but exhilarated. Zyra approached, her presence calm and commanding. "You have proven something rare today," she said. "Not just your courage, but the value of thinking differently. I have long ruled, observing countless species, and none have surprised me as humans do." Elias shook his head, laughing softly. "I didn't expect to impress anyone today. I just did what humans do." "You underestimated the importance of your species' qualities," Zyra replied. "Creativity, audacity, the willingness to act when others hesitate, these are strengths. I see now why the galaxy cannot ignore humans." For a moment they stood in silence, watching the distant stars. Elias felt a swell of pride, not personal but for humanity. They had faced a threat greater than anything he had imagined, and yet, by staying true to who they were, humans had turned the tide. Zyra finally spoke again, her voice thoughtful. "I once believed the greatest power in the universe was control, precision, absolute order. Today I have learned otherwise. Chaos, unpredictability, and courage, these can be equally powerful." Elias smiled, feeling the warmth of recognition. "Humans have always relied on the unexpected. Sometimes that's our biggest advantage." "You will remain with me human," she said. "Not as a soldier, not as a diplomat, but as an observer, a contributor, a representative of your kind. The galaxy will watch us and they will see what humans are capable of." Elias felt a surge of gratitude and determination. "I'll do my best," he said, "for humanity and for this alliance." Zyra's expression softened, her violet eyes reflecting a rare glimmer of admiration. "Your species has much to teach and much to learn. Perhaps together we can shape a future neither of us imagined. As the first light of the twin suns began to creep over Zoria's horizon, Elias realized that the playful question he had asked hours, or perhaps days, before had set events into motion he could never have predicted. What had started as a joke had become a pivotal moment, proving that humans were not just observers in the galaxy, but active participants with the power to influence history. He looked at Zyra, the alien queen whose power was unmatched, and felt a bond form, not of romance, but of respect, understanding, and partnership. Humans were capable of audacity, creativity, and courage, and now the galaxy would begin to notice. The palace hummed around them, alive with energy and purpose. Outside, Zoria's landscape stretched endlessly, waiting for new adventures, new challenges, and new triumphs. Elias felt ready, knowing that with human ingenuity and courage, no obstacle was insurmountable. And somewhere in the memory of the stars, the tale of a human who dared to ask the impossible, and an alien queen who recognized the strength in audacity, would be told for generations. It was a story of collaboration, respect, and the extraordinary power of humanity in a universe that underestimated them. For Captain Elias Vane, the adventure was far from over. But for the first time, he knew one undeniable truth. Humans could stand among the stars, not just as wanderers but as innovators, thinkers, and heroes. And in the light of two suns rising over Zoria, he smiled, ready for whatever the galaxy would throw at them next.